To take a closer look at the contemporaries of boxing today, the future, what's on the horizon, who has something to offer the sport. This video is a close-up of the participants who can definitely make a difference in the sport going forward. Let's talk. In the current state of boxing, we're seeing a number of things that are keeping the sport from being as entertaining and crowd-pleasing as it could be. But there are a number of participants in the sport who could actually create the excitement that has been missing from boxing for a long time. Thus, we will discuss the contemporary legacy of boxing. And when I state this based on what we know to be fact. And currently, we're not seeing enough of the best of the participants in the sport facing one another. And who's to blame for that? It's easy to say the promoters, the networks, and the fighters themselves. But I do believe it is a collective situation that brings about the lack of proper, appropriate, challenging bouts that can generate the interest of the fans. So what do we have to look forward to when we see these things? Take Devin Haney, the current undisputed lightweight champion with a record of 28-0 with 15 KOs. On October 15th, he'll be defending his titles for the first time in a rematch against the man that he won the unified titles from, George Kambosos. That's the type of fight that will certify the legacy that he has at the lightweight division. Ordinarily, it wouldn't be a need for a rematch, but it's according to the contractual obligation that he has to fulfill. But Haney is one of the ones who is at the top of the sport and is willing to face all comers. Another fighter to take into consideration would be a gentleman that has familiarity with everyone out here, and that would be Earl "The Truth" Spence. Earl has the type of style and the approach to the sport that you really desire from a champion. With his record of 28-0 and 22 KOs, The Truth is waiting on his legendary match for supremacy at welterweight against Terrence Bud Crawford. As soon as that fight takes place, we will have the definitive champion at that weight class in a bout that everyone who enjoys the sport looks forward to. And that's what the sport needs each and every day of the week as we look into it. You cannot deny that a bout between Earl Spence and Bud Crawford wouldn't be a fan-friendly fight that all would want to see and engage toward. Next up, Shakur Stevenson, who is currently 19-0 with 9 KOs after defeating Robson Consecao but losing his junior lightweight titles on the scales. It was going to be announced that Shakur was going to move up to the lightweight division after their fight, but seeing that how he could not make the weight and came in over 1.6 pounds and lost his titles on the scale, he immediately abdicated the throne and decided to go ahead and move on up to lightweight for future services. We await Shakur's arrival at the lightweight division, which would make things so much more interesting. Then we have a focal point where we zoom in on Stephen Fulton. This young man who has had the opportunity to take on a number of undefeated challengers and is now currently a unified champion with a record of 21-0 and 8 KOs. Fulton brings the type of challenges that most of the fighters at the lighter weights don't want to face. He has a skill set of hand speed, footwork, defensive capability and responsibility, decent power, and overall spirit that he wants to challenge himself to face the best, where you see tons of fighters shunning away from that responsibility. Fulton is not one. He is one of the ones that you want to see each and every time out. And the networks aren't smart enough to showcase him. That be not from ignorance, it be from bias. He is not the type of fighter they want to showcase because of the superiority and skill sets that he exhibits. The fighters that they want to market can't compete. So this is how they do nowadays. They ignore. But you can't ignore a talent like a Stephen Fulton. You can't. Just like there are other talents around the sport that you just cannot ignore. And when they fight, they will not be denied. For an example, let's take a closer look at Jaron Boots Ennis. He be of the new wave of talent for the welterweight division, just biding his time, allowing the champions at the top to take care of their unfinished business. Jaron Boots Ennis looks to be the future of the division. Blazing hand speed, the ability to switch orthodox and southpaw. A tremendous fighter. A fighter who, years ago when I saw him for the first time, with his now record of 29-0 and 27 KOs, I mentioned early on he had Roy Jones-like talent. I didn't say he was the new Roy Jones. I didn't say he would replace Roy Jones. But his skill set and abilities in the ring were quite reminiscent of what I saw in a young Roy Jones, with the exception of the dynamic ability to switch to both, or from orthodox to southpaw. The hand speed, the awkward ability to get out of the way of punches and counter with power. That seems to be a little bit extreme for a man of his size. But it's exciting because when he lets those hands go, you see funny things happen to the opponent. They have that look of bewilderment, the same way as when Roy would make contact. These type of talents and the men who possess them are why contemporary legacy is so important. When you think about the future, when you think about what's happening presently, can these men help sustain the sport and take the sport forward into a new era? This is what we hope for, but it can only happen when fighters decide to get in the ring and test themselves, not not only against opposition, but to challenge history in some instances and themselves. Because a fighter at a certain point has to decide, what is he fighting for? And a lot of times it has to be for more than simply himself. A fighter who is young needs to be taught this by his mentors early on, so he understands that he always has goals set ahead for himself. Take Jared Big Baby Anderson, his record of 12-0 and 12 KOs, the future of the heavyweight division, a fighter who has, according to what's been said behind the scenes in the gyms, have given some of the elite top-notch fighters troubles. He has potential, but that's a word that I don't like to use a lot, because many people leave a lot to be desired with potential and leave potential on the table. It is something that you have to find to put into the works of what you're doing in the sport of boxing. Setting those goals, having aspirations to be able to take up some type of position and carry that through. Fighting for the people, fighting for a cause, fighting for legacy, fighting for history. Pick one. Then you begin to tear away the layers of the onion and figure out exactly why you are doing what you're doing. Contemporary legacy is so important, and many fighters do not understand that it's just in their hands. This is Stormy B Man. That's all I have for you at this time. Leave comments and let's discuss. Shout out to the mighty LDBC. Peace to everyone out there, and everyone please remain safe.